You're going to see a smile on my face anytime when I get a chance to be able to have someone on the podcast with the coolest job in the world. Now, I said that with my buddy who is a comedian, but this is the dream. This young man, it's the dream of every single kid. I don't care who you are, if you're a young lady, you're a young man, or even if you're a middle-aged man like myself, we still have these dreams. Some of us need to let that dream go, but this young man is actually living the dream. We have an absolute rock star on the podcast today, and I got to see him in a backyard concert with my friend Mark Willis, and this man just owned it. There's people who have it. I hope I could develop it, and that's what I want to talk to him about today, is because I'd like to develop my rock star, inner rock star, and be able to do this. But this guy has it. There's that thing that some people say you could be, either you're just born with it. Some people say you could develop it. I don't know. We're going to find that out. But this young man has, transcended, and the type of music that he plays is, connecting with the audience, and also the humility. He came off stage, everyone was clamoring for him. I pulled him aside and said, "Hey man, I think you're one of the coolest guys. I would love to have you on the podcast." He was like, "Here's my phone number. Let's go." And most people aren't willing to do that. He has a new single out called Sick of It. You have to listen to it. We'll have a link for it. But it is my honor and pleasure to have Mr. Tristan Tritt on the podcast. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
The rock star, Mr. Tristan Tritt. Welcome to the show, my man. It is so good to see you. I lost your audio. I don't have your audio right now. I just heard that. There we go. I can hear you.
I just heard. Awesome.
Give me a little test.
Test 1 2.
There we go. The true rock star, Mr. Tristan Tritt, is on the podcast, man. I want to thank you so much. Congratulations on the new single, Sick of It. Can I ask you about that right off the bat, man?
Absolutely.
Am I allowed to? Well, the reason why I say it is because whenever I hear a song like this, unless you're a really good actor, these have some, like, a real story behind it. Help us with the story of Sick of It, because your lyrics, the first verse starts off and you punch us in the face. You don't warm us up at all, man. You hit us pretty hard. Where did this song come from, and how'd you write it, man?
So the story behind the song is actually kind of a funny one, because I was in a relationship when I was writing it, and it's a breakup song for the male perspective. But I was actually in a relationship when I first wrote, the first draft of the song, and played it for the girl I was currently dating, just because I thought it was a funny song. It was kind of placating and making fun of the whole she's broke, I'm up kind of trope. A guy going through a breakup. So it was honestly a way of me doing a tongue-in-cheek, poking fun of that whole stigma. But it became something where, after, I guess, I was foreshadowing for myself a little bit that I was going to be falling out of a relationship. So I really wanted to just kind of twist the knife a little bit more into myself, and kind of, I guess, not take the situation so seriously, and it really is making fun of that whole idea of the transitionary period of breaking up, and how we're all emotional wrecks. But I just want to say it from the guy's perspective. It's just funny to me.
So, Tristan, how do you choose your type of music, right? So, you've got country western artists, you've got hip hop artists. Is it because of the environment that you're in, or when you're a musician like yourself, you just kind of gravitate towards something and it becomes your sound?
To be honest, I gravitate whatever I feel the most, and that may be like an abstract version of how music works because it's not something that's tangible. But if I can feel any type of emotion behind it, whether it's rebellion, if it's celebration, if it's great amount of sadness, whatever it is, I go towards whatever feels the most. And sometimes for me, that's more of the alternative rock style. Sometimes it's more blues. It's all over the map. But the main thing that's consistent is feeling. It's got to have the most amount of feel to it, and then that makes my job 10 times easier to write or be inspired by certain types of music.
Talk to me about this too, because anytime you're in the art or your situation is very different. Like, you don't have a normal job, right? And so when I say a normal job, there's a lot of people out there that clock in 9 to 5, and I love you. But when you're an artist, you have the tendency early on, an artist in any realm, you have the tendency to get a little bit of pushback. That could be from brothers, sisters, parents, all those things. How did you deal with that? And how do you foster it when that's in your heart? Like, hey, I'm a musician, I'm a rock star. But saying that to somebody, a lot of times there is pushback. How did you deal with that, and how do you get through that?
As kind of cliche as this sounds, you really just have to have a mission in mind. You have to have something that is a constant, a true north. And for me, that was the goal of trying to create something that I could share with the world and share with people who enjoy it. But there's going to be times where you're going to ask yourself, what am I doing? How did I get here? And it can be in a good way or bad way, especially in these sort of formative years. Because I've only been playing music now for about 4 years, and now is kind of the drop off point where you see a lot of people quit. You know what I mean? That 4 or 5 year mark. Really, I'm seeing it myself. I'm seeing a lot of people kind of, dropping out like flies, and it breaks my heart because it's like, if you have a certain amount of fortitude and you have that true north and you can keep reminding it, yourself every single day, whether it's a mantra, whether it's, religion or any type of principles that you can use to keep going. I mean, it's never going to be an easy route to take this career path, but as long as you're consistent with what you know and what you want to achieve, then you're going to get over those peaks and valleys pretty easily, or at least you'll understand that this too shall pass. And I think a lot of people nowadays, maybe it's the generation of instantaneous gratification, but it's hard for things to start getting difficult and then people just drop immediately. That's not how life works. Anything that's worth anything in life it's gonna take some trial and error. It's gonna take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as they say, and that's just part of getting past that, is just being consistent and going, okay, well, people may not understand what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing, and I have a purpose, and I'm driven to do this and accomplish it any way, shape I can.
So in a industry that most, and when I say most, I mean a high percentage, are what you talked about, right?
Yep.
On a day-to-day basis, are there things that you tell yourself? I mean, there's times where I look in the mirror, I'll get in an outfit and I'll be like, and I'll talk to myself, I'll be like, yo, Kelly, you look good. You know what I mean? I have to.
Yeah.
Is there things that you take yourself through because you didn't choose a profession that is like that? I mean, you're going to have the highest highs and the lowest lows. Like, you're not going to be a across the board, like even emergency broadcast system type of sound. It's going to be I hit the stratosphere because I worked my butt off. What are the things that you do on a day-to-day basis to get you through that?
I'm honestly just a creature of habit, and I have a very set amount of routines that I do daily. And when I fall to the wayside with those, my life seems to kind of go off the tracks a little bit. Just I have to do my routines, and that's anything from just daily reflections, journaling, making sure I'm educating myself about the newest things that are going on, giving myself time with friends and family, as well as being alone. Because I think a lot of people, we go too far on either side. Some people really can't stand being alone, and some people are alone too much. But for someone who's in the creative field, you kind of have to have that moment to kind of reflect and be able to get these thoughts down into, a line or a verse or a whole melody. And the more consistent I am with my daily routines, the easier it is for me to actually, go in and do the work. And as soon as like I said, if I kind of let it slip a little bit, then I'm just not the exact same. I'm not firing on all cylinders the same way.
You're just about to go on a tour. And when we hear tour, right? When we hear tour as a non-rock star, right? Aspiring still, I'll probably be aspiring still when I'm 75. I keep telling Damian Horn I'm ready. And he's like, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to get in the very back of the crowd and I'll call you when I need you. And I'm like, are you going to give me the sign? He said, yes. He's never given me the sign. We've been friends for like 5 years and I'm there and I'm ready. And he's like, do you play any instruments? I'm like, no. Do you sing? No. Can you do any? No, I can't, but I'm ready. So how, like, when we think about it from a non-rock star standpoint, we're thinking, oh my gosh, you're going on tour. Okay. So everything's going to be like, you're going to be sprayed with water when you walk in. There's going to be green M&Ms in the back. Everything's going to be taken care of for you. Can you give us a real life of what it's going to be like when you go on tour here in a bit down to South Florida and up into Indiana and doing all the stuff?
Absolutely. It's a grind. It really is a grind. And I'm kind of in a different position because I'm not in a band per se. I'm a solo artist who has a band, but I'm not afraid to take up other positions that I need to at this moment in time. So being a tour manager, that's basically falling on my shoulders, doing merchandise, doing everything. So I have to make sure that everything is lined up. Hotels are booked, rentals are ready to go, like, for the band. The band is basically there to make the music and that's it. They're there to show up on time. And I pretty much have to set it up consistently to make sure that, all those things fall into place. So I'm very busy, which is a good thing. I'm extremely grateful and thankful, but it is not as glamorous as, especially in these beginning years. I said something earlier. This is the soccer mom tour because we have to find a way to pack everything into a single van and then go on with it. There's no tour buses. And every inch of space counts. Every dime that is supposed to be going right back into the business, that counts. You have to be frugal. Like, it's a grind. But I'm extremely thankful, and I love the process of it because no matter what we have to do, whether you're sitting in a car for 14 hours a day or 9 hours a day or whatever it is, that small window of time of playing on stage makes it all worth it. And what people don't understand is, even at the pinnacle, at the top of the music industry, whether you're a Taylor Swift or a U2 or whatever it is, majority of this job is just waiting. It's just waiting. You're waiting. You're sitting. You're hurrying up to wait all the time. You're getting to a venue so you can wait. You know what I mean? It never ends. You better learn how to get patient.
Where does the humility come from, Tristan? Even your joy in your laughter, like when we start laughing right there, like rock, like when I think of things, most of the time they're synonymous. When you think of rock star, you almost think of kind of aloof. You think of, there's ego involved. Some of the greatest bands of all time have broken up because of ego. You know what I mean? But every time I interact with you, you are one of the most humble, like gracious, individuals. And it's just like, and as you're talking about it, you're willing to put in the work. Where did you learn that?
I've always had I've been extremely blessed to be around a lot of people who led by example and who just went out there and did the work, and you could see it way more in their actions than just their words of, like, I guess the difference between, the words happy and the words joyful. Happy is kind of a fleeting, it's a fleeting thing. And then there's just people who have this natural, even if they're more stoic in their personality, they have this natural joy amongst them. And for me, it's being able to look at the little things in life and be appreciative of stuff that we take for granted. And I've had some health stuff in the last year or so that to be honest, has been one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, because it allowed me to look at things from a fresh perspective and understand that, yes, you're going to come to terms with your own mortality. And I think that's one of the beautiful things, is once you have that acceptance of what's, coming down the line, things just seem to have a little bit more of a flair and an energy to them, where it's hard for me to even be upset for too long. Life's too short and things are too great out there to not, I don't know, to worry about how things should be and not what they are. So many people are creating a world that it needs to be this or this. It's too high expectations for something that you can't control. Most of life is not, you're sitting in the back seat kind of, and you have to be aware of that, and that's okay. So that it's a humbling feeling when you understand that, because it's like, oh, I'm really not in control. And once you realize that, at least for me, I mean, there's a lot of things I still am responsible for, but I don't control whether or not the sun rises or sets. So I have to take every single opportunity as today's a beautiful day. I'm going to smile about it,
Can I ask about the health scare?
Absolutely. Last year I had something called a sarcoma removed from like my upper thigh. And basically it was it wasn't fast spreading or anything like that, but it was registered as cancerous. So they had to, do the surgery and stuff. And I never had any type of health problems as a kid. So it was kind of a jolting experience. But once I got through it, I didn't have to do radiation or chemo or anything like that, thank goodness. But it brought everything back to a perspective where I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna meet my maker one day. So I might as well look at the opportunities I have in life and not waste it,
Where does the hard work and work ethic come from? I mean, it's one thing to see it, right? So you see some stuff, and you've seen some stuff in your life, but then there's another side to apply it, because I've been around people who, they see it, they see, this person working hard, my uncle working hard, whatever it is. And then they go through the challenges of actually applying that. Help us with that.
Right. I think with working hard, there's this false idea of like, you grind it out, and eventually like it all comes to fruition. First off, that's not a guarantee. And I've had to learn that the hard way too. It's like, just because I do something a lot of times, or because I care so much about it, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out. And that's part of it. The second end of that is consistency. If you're not consistent, yes, you have exceptions to the rule, and you have occasionally, something blows up and it really wasn't, it didn't have that much thought put into it, and it was just right place, right time. But the chances of that happening multiple times is slim to none. And if you're not consistent in your workflow, then you're gonna, I don't know, it's gonna be much more difficult for you to just show up and be able to accomplish anything, because you don't have the ability to keep doing it, day after day, even if it's the most monotonous and small things. You have to, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that's been burned in my brain since I was a kid. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Wow. Where did that one come from?
Both my parents are extremely hardworking. And the biggest thing they always taught, me and my siblings, I have a younger brother and an older sister, and they always taught us it doesn't matter, whether you win or lose or anything like that. You have to just show up, and you will not quit. And that was one thing, like my parents did not let us quit anything. If we started it, you're going to finish out that season, or you're going to do what you got to do, even if you can't stand it. Like, we had to finish out. And that, I'm thankful for it now, because I'm not afraid to finish something out. But I've seen a lot of people in my life who truly, like, they've quit everything, and it's almost like a reaction, almost at anything becomes difficult in your life now, whether it's your relationships, whether it's a job, whether it's anything that you get some type of friction, they just quit. And to me, that scares me more than anything, because the two words that scare me and keep me up at night are the words, what if? And I don't like those words. It's a void. You know what I mean? It never ends. So what if it is something that I can control, as long as I just stay consistent? The what if is never going to be, did you quit? Now, whether or not it's successful or not, that's one thing or the other. But I will not be in the what if position of going, oh, well, I didn't finish it all the way through? What if I stayed the course? I'm not going to have that conversation. That scares me more than anything.
So tell me about some of those lessons growing up, because you have a very, your mom, I love your mom your mom is gangster. You know, that one word that we could just put it in line. When I first met your mom, I mean, she's so funny, so loving, so endearing, but you don't want to cross that lady. She'll knock your ass out right quick. But what were some of the lessons early on that you resisted that now you look back at? Now you're telling us that I love the fact that I didn't quit. But there are those times where I remember my dad teaching me how to drive a stick shift. And he put me on a hill.
Yeah.
And the truck was going up the hill, and he's like, he got out, he put the emergency brake on. He was like, drive it. And I said, no, Dad, I can't. I started crying, doing all stuff. He got out the car. He just looked at me. He said, you're going to drive this thing right now. Now I like it because I can drive a stick shift and I can do it on a hill and I'm cool. But at that time I was pissed. When was Tristan pissed at these lessons?
I mean, I was an angry kid, to be honest with you. Like, I was always, frustrated and sort of just filled with this, I guess, angst about me. But it dealing with those conversations every day of like, you just wanted to quit. You wanted to not see something through, and just having that, my parents were stuck in the ground, their feet planted, both heels planted. They not moving worth a damn. You were going to finish this. You wanted to, whether it's join wrestling, karate, baseball, whatever, you're going to finish this out. If this is not what you expected in the beginning, that's fine. That's dandy, but that doesn't stop for the fact that you're going to finish this. And, I constantly was, butting heads with my parents, especially like in my, adolescence. And I think, that's just part of it. But I'm very thankful for it now because, like I said, this period in my career is really the time where a lot of people are just dropping like flies. And if it weren't for the fact that I was taught to be consistent and understand that you don't quit, then who knows? I could be on a different career path as a whole right now. But I'm thankful that I'm able to stay the course and look back at what I was 4 years ago. And because I've stayed consistent with this path, you see the amount of growth that happens. And that's one of the most fulfilling things of this whole career is being able to look back and see the progress.
I think one of the most endearing things too, Tristan, about somebody is the most challenging. Let's talk about Mama for a second. Tell us
Absolutely.
about a specific experience where she would not let you quit, but it was so frustrating to you at that time. But obviously you learned the lesson, you love her afterwards. But so people can gain a scope, like for people to understand who your mom is, like how cool she is and how, I mean, she's disciplined as they come. Tell us some specifics on that.
I mean, anything from just being a kid, and we were in martial arts. We did like Shotokan karate for years. And, at a certain point you kind of age out and you're ready to try something different in life. And she wouldn't let us stop until, we became black belts and like mastered it basically. Like we had to keep going until we got to that point. And I mean, you're talking about years to get that done. That's not something that just happens in like, a couple seasons. And I mean, it was a lot of time and effort, but I will give her credit. She never let us quit, like never, ever, ever. And I mean, it was a lot of work, but I'm thankful now to say that, that was something that I saw through all the way. And she just didn't let me or my sisters quit. It wasn't an option. It wasn't like we had a back and forth. It was, this is it.
Tristan, you grew up around the music industry. And what I notice is I would like to think that a person is just born with this thing. There's the other side that environment has a lot to do with it. What were some of the things that you saw early on in your life that, kind of helped you to see that this art and this path that you're going on is actually possible?
Absolutely. That's something that I'm extremely thankful for, is like, I grew up in a house where I literally saw with my own two eyes the American dream in fruition. You know, a lot of people I think walk through life and they hear stories of people making it, but it's like I saw it with my own two eyes every single day just based off of, you know, my dad. So I was always I knew it was possible. Every single day. I knew it was possible. Now, was it guaranteed? No, but it was possible. You know, and you see that and you go, "Oh, I had a lot more of an optimistic perspective because I'm like, if I show up and do the work, if I, you know, grant you do have to have a level of talent. That is true. But at a certain point, I think specifically in music, it almost becomes like the tortoise and the hare situation because I've seen a lot of people who were naturally gifted, but they didn't stay consistent with their work ethic. And over time, that person who didn't have that much talent but was consistent in their work surpassed them. And that happens a lot of times. Like you see it in athletics too, that someone who's naturally gifted as opposed to someone who really has to grind out. But at a certain point, they're gonna surpass them just because they're it's exponential growth. It's gonna keep adding up over time, even if it's a longer process. Music is no different. The person who comes out every single day or has these routines where they're constantly writing, they're releasing music more consistently, they're on the road, they're building up markets, they're building up fan bases. Even if they're not the most talented person, over time, their numbers are going to reflect the fact that they've been consistent with their fan base and with, you know, collaborating, and that's the whole difference. And it doesn't matter if the person down the road is one of the best guitar players of all time. If they're not putting in those hours, they're just not, you can't compete.
So help me too, because what makes a song a hit as opposed to a song? Do you hear it? Like Sick of It, like when I heard it, like literally I heard it like right when I turned it on. And then to hear your voice come in, you got to build up as far as music. And then I told you punch us in the face with the lyrics immediately.
Yeah.
Do you know it's a hit right when you're doing it, or does it surprise you because of what other people like gravitate towards?
I think you hope for the best, but my biggest thing is if the people are gravitating towards it and they listen to it, and that's something that like they feel, going back to what I said earlier about, you know, the music that drives me, my influences, it's all about feeling. I'm not looking at this as something of like, would it be nice to have a hit with it? Absolutely. I'm not going to lie to you and say that wouldn't, you know, make my year. But if it's also a song though that a handful of people listen to and they just feel it, you know, they resonate with it, then it's mission accomplished. Mission accomplished.
What about the cross and genres thing? Because we see this. I mean, I'm quite a bit older than you, Tristan, but and I don't like to say that. I use good lotion, so that's why I don't look it, right.
There you go.
But early on, probably in my, I would say teens, late teens, there started to be a crossing of genres. There started like hip hop started to do stuff with country, and then you started to mix and match, and you started to see these things. And are you like, when you think of album, when you come out with the album and you go, are you already on to the next one and thinking about maybe a newer sound, or do you find that pocket and that becomes your sound?
No, I'm constantly changing it up. I'm constantly getting inspired by new artists. I'm getting inspired by older artists. I'm getting inspired by everything around me. And music, I started looking at music differently with two things. Number one, I stopped making music for everyone else. I started making music for myself, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's the truth. When you make music for yourself, then you're going to make something that you're proud of and you enjoy, and hopefully, and that's where authenticity can't be faked. Because if I'm enjoying something and then, you know, someone else sees me enjoying it, it's not forced. And now if you like the song too, great, then we can enjoy this thing together. But even if you don't, I'm happy about it. And that changed how I wrote music in a lot of ways. And the second thing is, I realized with music too, all music is a snapshot into that particular moment in time. And how no different that if I ask you right now, Kelly, hey, do you feel good today? Absolutely. But tomorrow you could have a rough morning. It's the person has not changed. It's just the fact that your representation of what you feel like at that moment has changed. So music is no different than me. It's no different. Like at this moment in time, yes, I might be going for something a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, hard hitting, but that doesn't mean that my next release is not something that's more R&B based or has influences of reggae or anything like that. Like it's all based on how I'm at, how my mindset is right then and there. What's going on in my life? There's Sick of It and the upcoming songs for the EP are all basically about the end of a relationship, because that was a pretty prominent thing in my life at that moment. It was hard to ignore. But nowadays, because of like I'm in a relationship, I guarantee my music would be a lot more of a hopeful and loving type of representation just because of where I'm at right now.
Wow. So take us behind the scenes too in the music industry, because like for the layman, the person who goes to the concert or the person who maybe, does a download now, or even just has Apple Music and it's unlimited and they can download how many ever. How can we be a better audience to a musician and a rock star like yourself?
That's a great question, because I think depending on what type of show it is, like it requires different types of energy. Obviously, if something's more acoustic or chill, like how I met you at Mark's place, that was a lot more of like a listening crowd. I don't think a mosh pit would fit in that really really well. But there are times when artists especially, they just need just a little bit of that energy, and it's the difference between a good show and a great show. Having the energy respond from the crowd, that is some like shows I never expected I would enjoy so much. Just that little bit of energy changed the entire momentum of the show, and by the end of it, like we didn't want to get off the stage. And that's 100% based on what the audience did. It had nothing what I did. And just being, they were there, they were paying attention, they were giving me the energy that I needed in order to reciprocate it back to them, and it's awesome. And that, to me, that's what makes a good audience member. Just be in the moment and give all of the emotion to it too.
So help me with this, because I tell you, like a good audience, what you just said, and this blows my mind. A good audience is the difference between a good show and a great show.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
From an audience perspective, we think the other way. We're like, and I've done this before, and I apologize, Tristan, and now I'm going to be better. But there was times where I would go in and I'd be like, all right, I came to this show. You better show me. Now that type of energy obviously would suck. Like that would suck. Mm-hmm. And as the artist, man, okay. Take us through the training course of being a good audience. Let's start from the beginning. Like, do you want your audience to get dressed and be ready? Let's take it from the ground floor. Like, construct the perfect audience.
I mean, punctuality is huge. So, be there on time is great. I don't want to ask too much of people, but definitely you want to be there when the openers, it would suck if I'm opening and then no one's out there, because they're coming around the same time as the headliner, which good for them, But yeah, it just punctuality always works. And when it comes to, I guess, etiquette, there's not really a whole lot of lines for me. Like, just don't start no mess, there won't be none. Like, don't jump on the stage and expect for me to give you a big old bear hug, because I'm probably gonna try and sweep your leg. I don't know what you're gonna do.
The Shotokan, the black belt's about to come out. But also too, help us with this, because like when you talk about energy, right? And I can understand that part. Break down the, like, me bringing the energy to your concert, right? Or to seeing you play. What do I do?
Just, I guess, leave it all out there. Leave it all on the dance floor. As kind of cliche as that sounds, you just have to, because when I go on stage, I leave everything out there, and I'm not worried about, do I look like a goofball? Am I moving in a weird way? I don't think of it like that. Now, a lot of people are a lot more choreographed than I am, and some people are the opposite. Nothing wrong with it. It's all based on what you feel the most. But I want my audience to respond the same way that I'm on stage. I'm bombastic. I'm kind of spastic. I'm in the moment, and I just want you to be right there with me, and not care what's what anyone else is thinking. It's like what they say, dance like no one's looking. I've truly tried to embody that, because for me, I enjoy the music so much more, because I'm not worried about what other, I'm not trying to look cool.
Phones or no phones?
Honestly, I'm not opposed to people having phones. I just don't understand the hold up the entire time, because it's like fireworks. I've taken videos of fireworks, but not one time have I ever looked back at the videos of fireworks and gone, "Whoa, look at that!"
Is it distracting? Because I remember this very similar. I got to see Tom Petty right before he passed away. We saw him up in Napa, one of his last concerts, and he came out, and you could tell he was a little bit get off my lawn, but he was like, "Hey, put your phone down," and people were still had it up, and then he was like, "I said, put your phone down. Be here with me. Put it in your pocket." And people were still going. And he was calling them out and saying, like, "I want you to be present with me right now." Is there other things that we as the audience do? Take us behind the curtain, man. That is like a no-no that we shouldn't do?
Honestly, like, 'cause I've been playing bars and honky tonks and, clubs for the last couple of years, so I'm kind of used to seeing all of it. Kind of, this is the most invasive portion of like music, because I'm right there. If anyone wants to get to me, it's not difficult whatsoever. So I've dealt with every type of crowd you can see. I've seen drunken messes to the whole nine yards. Great audiences, terrible audiences, and the main thing for me is like just as long as everyone feels respected and not unsafe, then we're good. I'm there for a party. I'm there to have a good time, and enjoy the time with the audience. So I want you to be as loose as as possible. Now other artists are different, and like I said, you could have more of a listening crowd, and that's totally fine. But for me, bring your A game, and it's basically going to be like a tailgate. We're gonna tear this up.
Well, I was talking to you before we started recording, and I definitely want to have you at the Vibe Room. You saw the commercial for it. It's a live version of the podcast. Though we've added a musical element to it, which is amazing. We had Damien there and another girl named Claudia Ryan, and we just had some really, really, really cool people. Let me ask you this. We were talking the other day, and we were talking about sports, right? And so the question came up, is it better to have had the huge contract and then lost it, or to never have it before? And it really made us ponder, thinking like, I don't know if I'd want to see it and then it go away. Does that make sense? Or if I never saw it, I didn't get used to it, because you could get used to creature comforts and things like that. With the things that you've been exposed to early on in your life, and the things that you've seen, when you were saying that you're playing the bars, for the last couple of years, you're doing those things, you're building up, you're putting in the work, which amazing. You've also seen the pinnacle stuff. Like, you've been exposed to that very close. Is it better to have seen it, to know what's coming, or is sometimes that a hindrance?
I think it's all based on your perspective, because for some people, like with me, if I see it and I know that it exists and it's there and you've been able to achieve it once, then I look at that as a reassuring thing. Like, even if you've lost that opportunity, you've been able to pull it off one time. Some people, though, if anything goes astray from what they originally planned out, and I'm saying that with quotations, it just destroys them. They lose any type of confidence in themselves, because they're like, oh, it was built to fail. And it's like, I just don't look at things that way. I can see why some people do, but I try to be as optimistic as possible, even at sometimes to a fault. So I'm much more of someone saying, if you could achieve it one time, even if you lost it, you can do it again.
What artists are inspiring you right now?
Man, there are plenty of artists out there. Most of the people from Texas, I've got to say, Texas, as even though I'm closer to Nashville and I go up to Nashville for most of my work, Texas is just killing it in all fronts. I think those artists like Co Wetzel, Austin Meade, Dexter and the Moon Rocks, fantastic, just artists and people in general. They have a really original sound, and it's inspiring to see that they're not looking to chart or make hit songs like that. They're making music that they enjoy, and people are just by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people are enjoying it, and like to me, that's reassuring.
What is your path with the music side of it? Because the industry has changed, right? So when I was growing up, it was, you sell a certain amount of records. Or when I first started off with music, my dad introduced me to, it was reel to reels. And then it was 8-tracks, and then it was cassettes, and then you sold albums, then you sold CDs. Now we have a download culture or even a streaming culture that's different. What do you see as Tristan's path in music? Because there's so many different aspects to it, right? And so what do you see for you?
I try not to get too in the weeds with what I see as opposed to like what it is already, and just kind of be thankful about that. You know what I mean? Because I think you can get too lost in trying to build yourself up in that idea, and it almost kind of takes the reality from the situation. So I see one thing, I see the goal, and the goal is I want people to feel the same way that the artist that I grew up listening to made me feel, and that was Not Alone. And that's it. And it doesn't matter if it's in a good way, in a bad way, if it's if you're pissed off, I'm pissed off with you. If I'm upset, you're upset with me. Anything like that. Just those kind of artists in my life influenced me so much when I was a kid that I told myself, if this was the road that I was going to go down, that I would dedicate everything to making my listeners feel the same way that I did from the people that I grew up on. That's what matters to me.
So when I was talking about it before, and I say it, I mean, when I say this, and I know it's not me saying it lightly. Growing up, you got to experience, again, things that most people have never, and most likely never will.
Right.
What specifically were some of those? Maybe it would be a pinch me moment for anyone else, but it was just your reality. And then you realize later, like, I'm trying to think of a thing. Okay. There's a guy, he's one of the top motivational speakers in the world, and his name is Tim Story. Well, to my kids, it's Uncle Timmy. Like, they don't know what he does. They just think that Timmy is awesome. Uncle Timmy is there. And when I met, I don't know if you call him Uncle, but when I met Cheese, I didn't know what Cheese did. I didn't know who he was. Yeah. I didn't know who he was to the world. He was a really nice guy on a motorcycle who was really courteous to me, an amazing guy, right? Same thing with John Paul. When I'm around John Paul, he's John Paul, but he's my friend. What were some of the, Tristan, now that you look back on it, kind of pinch me moments that were normal to you growing up?
I mean, just wild, weird things like growing up while Dad was shooting the CMT Crossroads episode with Ray Charles, and like being around people like that. I was too young to really remember it, but like Johnny Cash, all these country music greats that have just, for me, for a lot of my childhood, those were just, people that were around.
So go ahead, keep going.
No, but that for me, like, it was, I always knew it was different, but it didn't, I don't get starstruck or anything like that. But, the older you get, especially after these people have already kind of, passed along, it's pretty cool looking back and be like, I got to see those people when they weren't just, performing. I got to kind of see them more in their element of just hanging around and being a grandpa or being a father or anything like that, So it's something I'm incredibly grateful for.
So when you look at it, right? So I was talking to Tony Robbins' son, right? And I asked him the question, like, Tony Robbins' son went into a similar industry as his dad. And I said, well, if you're raised by Michael Jordan, playing basketball, it's a tough thing, right? At what point did you realize for you said, you've been at this really strong for 4 years, getting after it as far as music. When did Tristan realize that music is going to be mine. Like this is where I'm going and this is what I'm doing. And I want to compliment you, man, because seeing you and I've got to see this progression, dude, the stage presence that you have. I mean, even in the backyard where people weren't like the ideal audience for you. And when I say a backyard, it's Mark's backyard. So, I mean, it's not a normal situation, right. But your stage presence was unbelievable. Like you ate the crowd up. The crowd just wanted you the whole time. When did you realize that was going to be your thing?
Pretty early on into it, I guess. Right around 2020. I used to have terrible stage fright, and I spent weeks just going. In 2020, I was in Georgia, so we didn't have a complete shutdown. Thank God for that. And I would just play as many bars as possible for open mics, and my hands would shake so bad I only get through about halfway or 90% way through the song because I'd either forget the lyrics because I'm overstimulated, or my hands would shake because I was so nervous. And eventually I just kept doing it over and over and over again until I started getting a lot more comfortable in my skin, and then that progressed to getting a band, and I was still kind of tense upstage, and over time, just trial and error, doing it consistently. If that's one word theme for this episode, I guess it'd be consistency. And just kept doing it over and over and over again. And eventually the stage presence just became more natural, and it made a lot more sense. And because I'm able now to look back and see the growth, I can keep that true north and have that mindset of like, okay, I am on the right path. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. There's too many signs that are reassuring and too many signs that are a net positive for me to not just go, okay, well, of course this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I've never felt happier or more fulfilled, and I've never had something that I'm willing to sacrifice time and effort for and get knocked down consistently, because a majority of this business is rejection. And guess what? I could care less because it's worth it in the end.
Talk to me about the rejection part, because that's, again, like when you just said that, my brain kind of went like, holy cow. Rejection. Mm-hmm. I generally see Rockstar as like, I mean, you even hear the endearment that a person says, like, oh, you're a rock star at this. Then you feel good. What's the rejection that you experience?
It's just in the beginning stages, and I'm even experiencing it now, just because every time you're moving up a little bit, there's more people that you have to prove yourself to, and more of the I guess the typical term would be, I guess, gatekeepers.
Okay.
And you're dealing with people who don't really, it's an exclusive club, whatever, and now you're going from whether it's playing bars to clubs or clubs to theaters or whatever. There's always going to be the people that are going to question and be dubious of the fact that you're in the position that you're at. So I get, even in the beginning, I was getting rejected all the time of calling a bunch of people, being my own booking agency and trying to get booked to play a bar or anything like that. And I'd hit up, 300 of them. And if 30 got back to me, that's getting back. And if 8 said yes, then that was a success, So you basically had to become a door-to-door salesman and just understand that, number one, don't take this personally. And number two, you can always change people's minds over time. Anyone who's in sales will tell you that, like, no is not the end all be all with that. And rejection is just a part of life. And the same people who told you no right now may be the same people that are giving you opportunities that you never dreamed of,
How do you keep yourself in that humble state where and I know it's just a matter of time? Like, that. And I know that. Hearing your music, being around you, seeing it's just a matter of time. But how do you keep the humility when a person does say no, that you don't get that little thing in you that you're like, I'll show you, because you don't have that spirit. Like, I never feel that spirit from you. I've never felt it from you. How do you keep that at bay? Because I think that I'm a worse person than you, Tristan. So I might be keeping a couple tabs and be like, yo, man, I remember you, bartender or, booking agent at that bar. I'm going to, like, when I hit the stadium, I'm calling you and you're not getting tickets. How do you stay away from being a horrible person like me?
I mean, I'm 100% human. So, I mean, to say that I don't have, tabs on certain people, that'd be completely false. I definitely am guilty of that. But I just try to tell myself and remind myself even if something does feel like a slight towards you, just try to make it not as personal as possible. This book that I've read so many times over and I absolutely love it. It's called The Four Agreements, and that's one of the beginning chapters is take nothing personally. And I think because you're dealing with something that's art based, so it's a lot of you. It's very vulnerable. You leave yourself open to getting really offended when people criticize you, because it's not like I'm working for a company that I have really no involvement with, and then someone criticizes my performance. This is something that's 100% me. It's vulnerable. So if someone comes at that, you want to take it as a personal slight towards you. But I just try to remind myself that it's like, you can't. And even if it is a slight towards me, if I looked at it's like looking at every single individual comment, I'm going to drive myself crazy. I'll be in a sponge room for, the next couple of weeks if I do that.
Okay. People coming up to you after a concert. Give
Sure.
us like the top 3 things that you should not say to a rock star when you experience, because you get some, when you're in the public's eye, like yourself, like you were talking about, but sometimes people just don't know what to say. So they say stupid things. Help us not either make you feel uncomfortable or say the wrong thing as an audience member.
I really don't have anything that would just send me over the edge, as long as it's not anything blatantly disrespectful. And I mean like blatant, because I have a really dark sense of humor. So there's not a whole lot of things I look at you and go, dude, what was that? Like I can laugh off pretty much anything, sometimes to a fault. But yeah, as long as you're not like just blatantly disrespectful, I mean it's common courtesy, then we're good. We're good. I'm gonna find a way to, meet you halfway and talk about something that we both know anything about, and we'll go from there. It's basic conversation.
What's the best comment that you've got after a concert?
I think someone looked at me one time and goes, "Well, that didn't suck," and that was great. 'Cause I was just playing at bars at this point, and I was like, the fact that I got, hey, that didn't suck. Hey, woo!
Is there an artist right now that's like, that blows your mind? Like I just got a text from one of my buddies, and he sent me the video of, have you seen Noga Erez Views?
I have not.
Okay, I'm telling you, have to see this. It's on Instagram. I'll even send it to you when we're done. But it's not, I mean, the video has a lot to do with it, but the song, her sound is unbelievable. Like it just blew my, expanded me a little bit.
Right.
Because I grew up hip hop wise, definitely some rock. Didn't grow up with a ton of country. My dad didn't listen to a ton of country, although I'm listening to country now because I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I like the premise of country. It's nice. Hip hop doesn't have the tendency to be nice to a 15-year-old. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Is there an artist right now that's hit you that kind of like just sparked something for you?
Sure. Plenty of them. Like I said, with the Texas crowds, there's a guy named Austin Meade who's just incredible, fantastic guitar player. A band from Texas as well called Dexter and the Moon Rocks. Whiskey Myers are incredible. Yeah, there's a massive list, and I could go on for hours if I was quoting straight down the list. But there's anyone who has that natural, I guess, energy about themselves where they're really dedicated to what they're doing, and you can sense it. You can't fake that kind of passion and love for your craft. So any artist that really just pulls that off, they've got my attention. The talent's got to be there, but at the same time, if they've got that energy, I'm in. I don't care what genre it is. I don't care what you do for a living or what your stances are on this ideologically. Like, as long as you're doing what you're doing to the best of your ability, then I'm going to be a fan of it. And that inspires me every single day.
Tristan, talk to the young musician out there right now that's picking up the guitar, that's being inspired by a Tristan, that's hearing your song and being like, man, that's really what I would like to be able to do. Now, there's the guys like me that you should just tell me, like, don't do it. Get another job because you're awful. You can't play the instrument right now, and it probably isn't going to work out for you. Although I'll be at the back of the concert, Tristan, and I'm ready. When you call, I'm ready. I'm here.
Absolutely.
What do you say to that young aspiring musician? You have them in the room. they're sitting down. They just heard some of your songs. They're saying, this is what I want to do. But I'm also hearing from either my parents or from people, come back into reality.
You have to be a sponge and understand that, first off, rejection is part of it. We've talked about that. There's going to be people that truly don't understand your mentality of like your ambitions. Like, you've seen that in life where, you know, if you're a highly motivated person, you're someone who's got goals, ambitions, things that you want to achieve in life. And as opposed to someone, whether it's a friend or a family member who just doesn't think that way, it's going to be like oil and water. And you have to understand that that's not a slight towards you. It's just how they think about things. But that doesn't mean just because they don't understand it, it can't work out for you. You just have to be willing to stay the course and in a way prove them wrong. And that's just a part of it. But the biggest thing I'd have to tell someone who's completely green in this industry and doesn't know anything is, just understand that you don't understand. And with that, listen to as many smart people as possible. Be curious, have a curious mind, and understand that this world, particularly the music industry, is so quickly changing all the time that as soon as you think you have a formula, you think you know what's going on, no one does. So you just have to be willing to be the dumbest guy in the room, or dumbest girl in the room, dumbest person in the room, and just listen. Just listen. There's a lot of smart people. And one of the reasons I was able to bypass a lot of kind of strife was because I listened to smarter people than I and took some of their advice. And that was it. I mean, that really, like, it. I've touched the hot stove plenty of times, and I will continue to do so because I'm stupid. But at the same time, I try to mitigate that by listening to a lot smarter people than I am, and that can literally change the course of your life, is just by listening to those who have actually been through it and understanding that you don't understand. It's okay. It's not an ego thing, and the quicker you do that, the quicker you'll achieve and move ahead in this world, because you're going to understand that, like, oh, if I need to outsource this to someone else, this, you know, you may not be the best person or best fit for this job, but being smart enough to understand that you're not good at something and bringing in someone who's, you know, that's their entire goal is to help you out with that particular thing, that could set you off with your success, because guess what? Now you're working on the thing you can control.
Wow.
And I think nowadays everyone's got this ego, and you just drop the ego and be a sponge.
Tristan, random celebrity crush.
Random celebrity crush. That's a good one. Right now, you know, since I was a kid, it's always been this way. But Eva Mendes, always been my crush.
So was this from
Eva
Desperate Housewives, Eva Mendes?
No, this was like what was the first movie I saw her in?
No, she wasn't in Desperate Housewives. I'm thinking Eva Longoria. Sorry,
Eva Longoria.
Okay,
Eva Mendes is
Eva Mendes. Yes.
Yeah, I remember her from like Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage, like those kind of movies.
Oh, see, I was saying it the other day. One of my celebrity crushes, my wife has to watch out because it's a male musician, and so yeah. But he has the same birthday as me, Tristan. There's an excuse. There's a whole story to. It's Maxwell. Do you know who Maxwell is?
Sure. I
think he is the Marvin Gaye of our time. Like, this dude is one of the most underrated guys. I mean, and I got to go to we went to a concert of his, and my wife was staring at him. Now, Maxwell's a sexy dude. You know, Maxwell's a sexy dude.
Yeah. Right.
You feel uncomfortable saying that right now, but I don't. I'm very, you know, I'm old and I'm secure in this. But I saw my wife checking him out, Tristan. Like checking him out. And she turned and she was like, "Oh, baby, I love you." And you know how I responded, Tristan? I said, "If you don't go get him, I will."
I love it.
Now, random. So Eva Mendes. So this has been consistent
since I was a kid. Since there's plenty of crushes out there today. The Margot Robbies and the Sydney
Okay.
Sweeneys. But yeah, Eva Mendes has always been my go-to.
But even if Margot Robbie, you're hanging out with her, Eva Mendes shows up, you're stiff-arming Margot Robbie because Eva.
Just for a matter of being such a longtime fan. Absolutely.
Eva Mendes, if you're listening, you need to come and see this man perform. You're incredible, man. I started the podcast, Tristan, because my two kids. I got a 15-year-old daughter named McKenna and a 12-year-old son named Maddox. He's just about to turn 13. And I didn't want them to worship idols in this world. I wanted them to be inspired by icons. And for me, right, you're an iconic person, not just because of the music that you play and that you have the coolest job in the world and you're a rock star, but because of the way that you came off stage and you connected. And even when I reached out to you the other day and I said, hey man, I would love for you to be on the podcast. I mean, the response was immediate. And it's incredible, the humility that you have, the character that you have, and even spending this time with you talking about the hard work, you talking about the consistency, you're talking about things that most people, it's not the shiny stuff. That's why you're an icon to me. What advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
Absolutely. I would tell Maddox and McKenna to just find that thing in life that really, it just gives you that type of joy that's almost indescribable. And it's worth the heartache, and it's worth the infinite amount of time that you're going to have to spend with it. But if it's something that, even at your worst day, something just brings you joy, and it could be, an artistic endeavor. It could be creating something. It could be, anything. You just have to make sure that you're willing to sacrifice a lot for it. And if you find that thing, and a lot of people don't in life, and that's the saddest truth. But if you're blessed enough to find it in life, hold it and grab it, grab the bull by the horns, and just be willing to dedicate your life to it, and you will be fulfilled with it. If it's something that truly gives you joy and gives joy to other people, then you will be fulfilled by it.
Tristan, are you at that point in your life with your craft where like a guitar is never far away, and that you're constantly wanting to pick the guitar up, you're constantly wanting to write, is that the space and place where you're at right now?
Absolutely. And you have, just like anything, you have moments where, you experience a little bit of a burnout, or sometimes just fatigue. I think it's more fatigue than a burnout in my case. But if that's the case, give it a couple of days off, and then come right back to it and have a fresh approach. And yeah, I'm always within, arm's distance of a guitar if I need it, because it's who I am, and that's okay.
Is it really important to you to learn to play other instruments also?
Sure. I think learning how to just learn in general. Most people they never learned how to learn. So it's difficult to pick up new things, but I'm constantly trying to pick up new things. I'm learning how to, work Logic, or I'm trying to learn how to play the bass, or just like any weird, thing, just to train my mind. It's like working out a different muscle. You're using different parts of your brain that you're not familiar with. So when you come back to something that you're familiar with, now you know how to learn, and that can improve, it improves me as a guitar player, it improves me as a songwriter, because I'm focusing on something completely alien to me, and that's, I don't just do that in regards to music. I do that with everything in life. I do it with physical and, endeavors, anything that I'm not comfortable with, because it brings me back to the things I know about, or that I've consistently done. And now I've got a new approach with it too.
Tristan's top 5 rock stars of all time.
Oh, easy list. Ozzy Osborne, Lemmy Kilmister, Led Zeppelin, Bob Marley, and Keith Richards.
That's a hell of a list, man. That's a good one. That's a really good. Tristan, it's my honor. It's my honor to have you on the show. I would love to have you on more. And like I said, I want to have you at the Vibe Room too. And for the audience to be able to experience you Sick of It, guys, is out right now. You could go on iTunes. You could go on any place. If you're going to be an audience member with Tristan, be present. Bring him your energy. He's already got the craziest stage presence that I've ever seen. But on top of that, you bring your energy, you'll be absolutely blown away. Plus, ladies, he's not that hard on the eyes either. He's a handsome guy. He's very uncomfortable right now. If you're not watching on video, he's very uncomfortable because I just said that and I had made the comment about Maxwell earlier. So Tristan is like, I don't know if I'm going to hang out with this dude anymore. I'm joking, man. My wife is hot and I'm married and I'm happy. So, but I want to thank you, Tristan. You're an incredible, not only rock star, but just human being, man. And we need more. We need more of you in this world, man.
I appreciate that. And thank you for your time and for having me on, Kelly. I really appreciate it.
What do you want to say to all your fans out there?
New music coming along. We've got an EP dropping in July, so just keep your ear to the ground and just get ready to join me on this adventure. It's going to be a good time.
We'll count it down too. And so I want you, if there's any things that, that promotion part, but we want to have you on right after. Let's plan to do that. Let's have you on right after you drop, or maybe we have it right before. It's tough on the podcast because we can't play any music because of the rights and all those things. But we could talk about it and have the world know more and more about Tristan. You're an incredible human being, man. I love you, and send my love to the family too.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
You're amazing, man. You're officially off the hot seat.
Achieving, cause we believing it's for certain. We put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting.